we're ready to get our blue plaque on. Yeah, sorry, blue plaque part 2. So thank you all so much for coming. Always makes me very, very happy. But yes, this is Oldham's Blue Plaques part 2. Now when I obviously split it because there's 40 in total and I knew that was going to be way too long. Last month I tried to write about 4,000 words for each talk. That fills the time nicely. Last month's was 5,400 words, so I was like, blimey. This month's is 6,400, so we might have to do a bit of it. If I see we're getting close to time, I might start really rushing through them, but hopefully that won't happen. I'm going to do my best to stay on point. Okay, so without any further ado, we finished our talk last month with number 20, which was the Bradbury Sewing Machine Company, and we're starting at 21 with another industrialist, a fellow industrialist called James Dronsfield. So he is remembered for being an industrialist, and this plaque is on Ashton Road in Oldham. In fact, this is the one at King Street roundabout that I'm always parked at, waiting to go, going, what's that plaque up there? Now I know. And I lived there for 9 years, but now I've found out. So yes, it's on the office building that opened in 1908, and the Dronsfield brothers owned Atlas Works in Oldham, that there, being Atlas Works, and they were textile machinery makers. So the company was founded by James Dronsfield in 1860, and he was born in 1809, died in 1880, and the company was then moved forward by his sons, Joseph Standring Dronsfield and William Dronsfield. So they were renowned for producing various types of textile machinery, particularly card grinding machines. And I am very nervous about sharing slides of textile machinery, because if you remember from my Plaque Brothers talk, I got a resounding telling off from one young Roy there. No, that's not a carding machine, Kelly. I'm a sweating heat going, well, what is it then? Because that's what Google told me it was. So I'm being very, very brave, and I'm going to tell you that this is a Dronsfield Eagle surface grinder. Roy?
Yeah. That's a surface grinder, yeah.
Oh, thank God for that.
It's not a card grinder.
I said it was a surface grinder, and this is a Dronsfield Marlowe Miller.
Yeah.
Oh God, right, you can all go home now. I've been genuinely nervous about that bit. As soon as you walked in, I thought, oh crap. There we go, I got my machines right, so I'm taking that as a win for the year. Thank you, Roy. So the company traded until 1983, when the receivers were called in and the company was wound up in 1985. From concentrating on textile machinery when it started, like many other firms, Dronsfield's diversified in the 20th century, producing more everyday items to a wider market, such as lawnmowers. Look at that beauty.
Yeah.
I think we're all of an age where we can remember using those. You know, not quite as swish as nowadays, but they did the job. Okay. What was that, 77 shillings and sixpence? Is that a reasonable price? Reasonable?
Bit expensive.
Oh, this is Dronsfield's bill. This is the good stuff.
7 and 6 pence, lots of money.
So, number 22, and I find this one slightly contentious. You wouldn't think there'd be much argument when it comes to blue plaques, but I'm a little bit contentious. I think it's a technicality. So, number 22 commemorates the first cotton mill in the area, Millbrow Street in Royton. The first mill in Oldham really was Lee's Hall Mill, built at Arkwright Street in about 1778 by William Clegg. There's Arkwright Street. By the way, I discovered arrows finally at the age of 48, so if there's a map in this talk, you betcha there's an arrow. Rather than me going, so on Arkwright Street, Lee's Hall, that was the site of the first mill in Oldham around 1778. And you'll see here Lydia Becker Way. I will be coincidentally talking about her later on this talk as well. So the blue plaque commemorating the first cotton mill in Oldham does not refer to Lee's Hall, it refers to Thorpe Mill in Royton. I say this is a technicality because Royton did not become part of Oldham until 1974. Until then, it was a separate autonomous county borough, completely separate government district in Lancashire. But the 1972 Local Government Act, Royton lost its autonomy, came under governmental control of Oldham. And so because it's now part of Oldham and there was a mill there built before Lees Hall, technically it gets the blue plaque for being the first mill in the Oldham area. So Thorpe Mill was built in 1764 by Ralph Taylor at Thorpe Clough. It was water powered by water from Thorpe Clough, a tributary of the River Irk, considered to be the first cotton mill in Lancashire, and it was a carding mill where textile fibres were prepared for spinning, and it was built when it converted existing cottages, but it closed just 20 or so years later and then was converted back to cottages, so no image to share with you. Number 23, coin controls, a world leader in transaction automation on New Coin Street in Royton. And this is one where I looked at that and thought, I don't have a clue what that's about. I recognise all the words in transaction automation, world leader, but I didn't really know what that actually meant. What it refers to is coin acceptors, devices that identify and accept coins, vending machines, gambling machines, those kind of things. Any coin operated equipment, usually give no change, always very annoying. And basically their key selling point is that they can distinguish between real coins and counterfeit ones. But also if you try to put, say, a euro into a British coin acceptor, it would know to reject it. And I mean, obviously I'm talking hypothetically, I've never tried that. I'm sure it'll take a euro. But how old do you think the earliest known example of a coin acceptor is? What would we say?
What earliest example of a coin?
Acceptor. You know, you put your money into, say, like a vending machine. What would you say is the early example?
18th century.
18th century?
Yeah.
We're going with that? 18th century. It is believed to have been invented by Hero of Alexandria in around 62 BC. Oh yes. He was a Greek mathematician and engineer, and he invented a contraption that dispensed holy water when you put a coin in. You put a coin in, you got some holy water. So I don't have an image of that, but I've got an image of Hero of Alexandria. There you go. Look, and he's designing stuff. Maybe that's a coin acceptor. But that's how old the concept is. But modern coin acceptors, modern vending machines, they emerged in the 19th century. Real growth from the 1880s onwards. So this is where coin controls come in. Started by a gentleman called David Bellis. He created the company in 1968, established it in Old Mill in Royton, before moving to new premises where the company, albeit under a different name, still works from today. So he previously started a company modifying coin acceptors to change from accepting Italian coins to British ones, and he was very, very successful. And interestingly, in the 1980s, he worked with a company called HAP in America and invented a joystick which was, and still is, a highly popular and highly regarded piece of retro gaming history. And I bet lots of you tonight will recognise these. Even I had one on my Atari ZX, circa 91, 92, something like that. But yeah, Oldham-based company involved with designing and producing these. So David retired from coin controls in 1991, can't keep an engineering ace down for long, started a new company the year after, working on cheaper ways for these machines to accept dollar bills. And it's now, I believe, Crane Payments Innovations, but still in the same building, and the plaque commemorates another world-leading firm that came from Oldham. Love it. Number 24, Lydia Becker. So suffragist, and the plaque is at Foxdenton Hall in Chadderton. So remember I mentioned Lydia when we were looking at Arkwright Street. So here is a fabulous photo of our Lydia in all her finery. Born in 1827, the eldest of 15 children. from a middle-class family who lived at Foxdenton Hall in Chadderton. So this is a Grade 2 star listed building, which means it's a building of particular interest, but sadly, nought's being done with it. It is vacant, it is falling into disrepair, and as far as I've found, Oldham Council has no plans.
Well, it belongs to Oldham Council, yeah.
Yeah, no plans as yet
Enough said.
to do anything with it, which is a real shame. But Lydia, fascinating lady. She was fascinated herself by science, particularly with botany. So we know her as a suffragist. But she corresponded with Charles Darwin, regularly contributed to his scientific work. She sent him plant specimens, she sent him descriptions of a thing called plant dimorphism. That's when plants have two distinct forms of leaves, flowers, or other structures. And she had a book published, Botany for Novices, in 1864. She sent a copy of that to Darwin, and he would write back, giving her feedback on her writing, advice on where to get it published. And she wrote about botany, science, and women's suffrage. So she was recognised for her own scientific contributions, and she won national awards for her work. For example, 1864, she won a gold medal from the Royal Horticultural Society for her collection of dried plants. Yeah, that's lovely, I like that. But additionally, very heavily involved in women's suffrage. So there was no Oldham Suffrage Society during her lifetime. So she worked in Manchester, involved with their suffrage movement. In 1867, a female Manchester shopkeeper called Lily Maxwell was accidentally included on the register of voters in Manchester, which entitled her to vote in a by-election before it was law. So Lydia went with Lily to Chawton Town Hall, and the returning officer did allow her to vote. You know, as British, we like a list. If your name's on the list, you're getting in, okay? So you're a woman, well, you're on the list, you can go and vote. So as a result, Lydia started immediately encouraging other female heads of households in Manchester to apply for their names to be added to electoral rolls. But of course, men, they got a little bit upset about this. Only men can vote. So the following year, women's suffrage was declared illegal. Not just you can't do it, we're making it law that it's illegal, okay? In 1868, Lydia was one of the 3 speakers at the first public meeting of the National Society for Women's Suffrage at the Free Trade Hall in Manchester, and she moved that women should have the same voting rights as men. She toured northern cities on behalf of the society. She founded the Women's Suffrage Journal, a magazine which focused on women's issues and, you know, support for women's suffrage. Regularly published guidance on how to prepare a petition demanding women's suffrage to be submitted to the House of Commons. So, you know, she wasn't just sitting on her laurels looking at plants, she was, you know, elbow deep in the fight of it. So she did differ from some other suffragettes in who she wanted female votes for. She focused more on unmarried women. Lydia felt that married women had more financial stability, they had more of the, I guess, the rights, the benefits, the privileges that came from having a husband at a time, you know, when women legally were belongings of their husbands. And so she felt they were less in need of the vote than single women or widows. So it made her slightly unpopular with some other fighters for women's equality, but overall she did an awful lot towards equality for men and women when it came to having the vote. And now she has a name, a road named after her, as I said, Lydia Becker Way in Chadderton. And there's also the Lydia Becker Institute of Immunology and Inflammation at the University of Manchester. So pretty good going. I like that, being recognised for both her contributions. Keeping in the same theme, we move on to Dame Sarah Lees. Another wonderfully dressed lady. I need that fashion to come back. Okay. Maybe in my next talk I'll be there with my bustle on. Get out the door. So a suffragist, philanthropist, Mayor of London, and the plaque is at Worneth Park. So Sarah was born in Manchester in 1842, married a gentleman called Charles in 1874 and moved to Worneth Park. Oh yes, Charles's surname was Lees. Of course it was. They get into every talk. She was widowed at the age of 42 and left a very wealthy woman. She and her 2 daughters were left £890,000 between them, which, I'm glad you're sitting down, approximately £100 million today. Yeah, I'd take Yeah? A lot of money today, staggering fortune back then. But she determined to put this money to good use. I mean, I'm sure she probably went on a nice holiday and re-wallpapered Worthing Park, but you know, she wanted to use this money for the good of the people of Oldham. And she was very heavily involved with lots of causes in Oldham, recreational grounds, Oldham Hospital, anything to do with education. Keen supporter of suffrage for women, although like Lydia, she differed in one way. She was very firmly opposed to any violent measures that lots of suffragettes took. She felt that was self-defeating, wouldn't win public sympathy, and I mean, she wasn't wrong. A lot of women were opposed to, you know, suffragettes because of the violence. Following the Qualification of Women's Act of 1907, which gave widows and unmarried women the right to stand anywhere in local government, Sarah became the first woman elected to Oldham's Town Council the same year, and in 1910, the first female mayor of Oldham. Only the second female mayor in the UK. So the first female mayor was a lady called Elizabeth Garrett Anderson, down south from London Way. But she was the first mayor, the first female doctor, the first female surgeon, and the first female magistrate in the UK, you know. So maybe there's my equivalent down in London doing a talk on her as we speak, you know, because that's a pretty incredible list of achievements. But, you know, taking nothing away from our Sarah, I mean, she could have been the epitome of a lady of leisure in Victorian times, but she worked and she did what she could for the people of Oldham. So number 26, Bishop Wheeler. There's Bishop Wheeler, I have it good authority, that's Pope John Paul. What second did you say?
Yeah.
JP2, as the cool kids call him. So Bishop Wheeler, William Wheeler, he is the Right Reverend William Gordon Wheeler, the 7th Bishop of Leeds, and his blue plaque is on Sacred Heart Church in Uppermill. So Dobcross lad, born there in May 1910, went to Oxford in 1929 to study history, good lad, and theology, and received into the Catholic Church in 1936, went off to Rome to study. So he worked in Middlesbrough and London, became Bishop of Leeds in 1966, remaining in office till he retired in 1985, and he died in February 1998 at the age of 87. I didn't really have much more to say about him, so I thought I'll give you some facts about the bishopric, the Diocese of Leeds, because you never know when that might be useful. He was a bishop, he didn't live a scandalous life, so I'm afraid that, you know, he was probably quite poor, because I know you like to know how rich people were. So the Diocese of Leeds was founded on the 20th of December 1878. The first bishop was Robert Cornthwaite. He served for 12 years, he was from Preston. Current bishop is Marcus Stock from London, and the longest serving was a gentleman called Joseph Robert Cowgill, just shy of 25 years. And that's pretty much exhausting everything I felt you needed to know about the Diocese of Leeds. But there's a nice photo. 27. Henry Taylor. I was thinking of you when I wrote this one, Bill. So Henry Taylor, swimmer and Olympic gold medalist, and the plaque is at Chadderton Swimming Stadium. Because Bill asked me probably a year ago, or gave me the suggestion that I could do a talk on like Oldham sporting history. And I haven't got around to it yet, but I am working on it, so I'm very happy to be talking about Henry. Oh, I've not shown you him. Look at him. I like this gentleman too. It's just like, I'm getting in on this. A very old, what do they call it, a photo bomb. So Henry. So he was born in March 1885, and he died in February 1951 in Hollinwood. So his parents died when he was young, and he was raised by his older brother, also called Bill. And he learned to swim at a very young age and, you know, displayed a remarkable talent and ability by all accounts. He learned to swim, allegedly, in Hollinwood Canal and in the boating lake at Alexandra Park. Went to work in a cotton mill, and again, apparently, spent his lunch break swimming in the canal, very, very dedicated. So he swam his first competitive race at the age of 7. Don't know the result, but I'm guessing he did quite well. So he competed in the 1906 Olympic Games in Athens. Interestingly, any medals won at these games are not recognised by the International Olympic Committee. So the Olympic Games as we know them now started in 1896 and, as we know, are held every 4 years. A few exceptions, World War One, World War Two, and COVID. 2020 Games were put back by a year. But it is every 4 years. After the inception in 1896, they were held in 1900, 1904, and the next one should have been in 1908. But I don't know why Athens was like, hey, we're going to do it in 1906. So people went and competed, but not recognised. Not to take anything away from any medals won there, and certainly not from our Henry. At Athens in 1906, he won the gold in the 1 mile freestyle, silver in the 400 metre freestyle, and bronze in the 4x250 metre freestyle. And he also broke the record for the 800 metres. At the London Summer Olympics in 1908, he won 3 golds. In the 400 metres, the 4x200 metres, and the 1500 metres, again all freestyle. And in 1908, he set the world record for the 1500 metre freestyle. And the 3 golds that he won in 1908 were not repeated by a British athlete until Chris Hoy won 3 golds at the 2008 Summer Olympics in Beijing. So that's our lad, that's an Oldham lad who set that incredible record. You know, it's just absolutely amazing. It's not tempting me to go and swim in the canal though, I have to say. That, no. I like swimming, no, not happening. So in 1910, he won bronze in the 4x200 metre relay race at the Stockholm Summer Olympics. In World War One, he served in the Navy. There is a probably apocryphal story about one of the ships he was on being, not bombed, being...
Torpedo.
Thank you, torpedoed. And after it sank, apparently he used that time to get extra practice in swimming laps and laps around it. That is a story, you can find that anywhere. Whether that's true or not, I'm not 100% sure, but I like to think he's like, well, I've got a few hours till I'm rescued. Off we pop. You could just time me. So he was remarkable. He swam competitively into his 40s. He represented England at the 1920 Olympics in Antwerp as part of the water polo team, and of course they won gold. But unfortunately his achievements weren't really merited in his own lifetime, and he did live in quite abject poverty in his later years, and he had to sell much of his career memorabilia to support himself. And he died in Chadderton in 1951, was inducted into the International Swimming Hall of Fame in 1969. So his legacy is absolutely amazing, you know, and this is a name that really, really should be more renowned. But, you know, I just, love that. Love those old-fashioned swimming costumes. That's cool. Number 28, site of Royton Hall. Not Royton in this talk. You've only been part of us for 50 years, okay? But they're sneaking in with the blue plaques. So, site of Royton Hall, this is on Hall Street in Royton. So, Royton Hall dated in parts back to the 13th century, so clearly a very old property. However, by 1832, it was described as neglected and decayed, a bit still very attractive. This is an undated photo from the late 19th century. You know, it's still cracking. I mean, I wouldn't say no. Not that they will, because it's not there anymore. So it had been owned by the Shelley family for over 400 years. The Shelley family, who in the 19th century produced the poet George Gordon Shelley, 6th Baron Byron. The family had long since sold the property, so doubtful George ever set foot in Oldham, which is clearly his loss. The Shelley family had sold Royton Hall in 1622 to the Standish family. They in turn sold it to the Percival family in 1662. In 1763, Catherine Percival married Mr. Joseph Pickford of Alt Hill. Cheap local connection. In 1795, the hall was leased out. By 1834, it had been divided into several dwellings, and in the early 20th century, it was 3 separate residences. So during World War I, the hall housed refugees from Belgium, and after the war, it was rented and then bought by a Dr. T.J. Godfrey. But in 1926, he attempted to sell it. He approached Manchester Council, Oldham Council, Royton Council, tried the National Trust, but nobody wanted it. Royton Council declined, saying they could not see any useful purpose for it. I'm like, look at it. Dr. Godfrey died in 1935. His widow attempted once more to sell it, sadly to no avail. So in 1938, Royton Council put it under a slum clearance order due to its derelict state, and in 1939 it was demolished. And the site is now occupied by Edge Hill Care Home. Just check out that arrow pointing to the site of where it was. You know, it's a shame. Oldham does have a bit of a reputation, Oldham Council, when it comes to lack of, I get it, money. Yeah, I do get that, but so many old buildings are not here that I think would have perhaps enhanced, but maybe that's for another day. Okay, number 29, Oldham's Victoria Cross holders. This is at 11 Church Terrace in Oldham. So I'm sure most, if not all of us, have heard of Victoria Cross. So it was implemented in January 1856 and for many years was the highest military honour given for extreme acts of bravery in the face of the enemy. And I say it was the highest honour until 1940 when the George Cross was created to recognise acts of bravery carried out not in the enemy's presence. And they're now considered equal in status. There's the George Cross. So no one has been awarded both the Victoria and the George Cross, but there are a pair of brothers, Derek and Hugh Seagrim, who were awarded one between them. Derek got the Victoria Cross in 1943, Hugh the George Cross in 1944, sadly both posthumously. They weren't from Oldham, but I like the brothers, each got one. So until 1921, only men could be the recipient of the award. Women are now eligible for it, but to date no woman has been awarded the Victoria Cross. In 1869, a woman called Elizabeth Weather Harris was awarded like an informal Victoria Cross for bravery during a cholera outbreak in India. And so far, 1,355 individuals have been awarded the honour. Although 1,358 have been given out, 3 individuals have won it twice. You know, impressive stuff. So, the Victoria Cross recipients from Oldham, which this blue plaque commemorates. So, we have John Hogan, born in Royton, April 1884, and he died in 1943. So he was 30 years old and a sergeant in the 2nd Battalion of the Manchester Regiment. In October 1914 in France, he, along with a second lieutenant called James Leach, performed a deed for which he was awarded the Victoria Cross. So I'll read their citation. For conspicuous bravery near Festubert on 29th of October, when, after their trench had been taken by the Germans and after 2 attempts at recapture had failed, they voluntarily decided on the afternoon of the same day to recover the trench themselves, and working from traverse to traverse at close quarters with great bravery, they gradually succeeded in regaining possession, killing 8 of the enemy, wounding 2 and taking 16 prisoners. I mean, come on. So he got his medal in 1914 from King George V at a ceremony in Buckingham Palace. So the second of the 3 is this chap, Thomas Steele. He was born in Spring Head in 1891 and he died in 1978. So he was 26, a sergeant in the 1st Battalion Seaforth Highlanders during the First World War, and he was awarded the VC for the following. On 22nd of February 1917, near Sana'iyat in Mesopotamia, at a critical moment when a strong enemy counterattack had temporarily regained some of the captured trenches, Sergeant Steele helped a comrade to carry a machine gun into position. He kept his gun in action until relieved and was mainly instrumental in keeping the rest of the line intact. Some hours later, another counterattack enabled the enemy to reoccupy a portion of the captured trenches, and Sergeant Steele rallied the troops, encouraging them to remain in their trenches, leading a number of them forward and helped to re-establish our line. On this occasion, he was severely wounded. And then the third, Walter Mills. He was born in 1884 in Oldham and he died in December 1917 in Givenchy. So he, on 11th of December 1917, he was manning a position at Red Dragon Crater near Givenchy, and his was awarded for most conspicuous bravery and self-sacrifice when, after an intense gas attack, a strong enemy patrol endeavoured to rush our posts, the garrisons of which had been overcome, and although badly gassed himself, he met the attack single-handed and continued to throw bombs until the arrival of reinforcements, and remained at his post until the enemy's attacks had been finally driven off. While being carried away, he died from gas poisoning. It was solely due to his exertions, when his only chance of personal safety lay in remaining motionless, that the enemy was defeated and the line remained intact. Absolute epitome of self-sacrifice. And he was buried at Gorée, British and Indian Cemetery, Pas-de-Calais in France. Okay, so number 30, Sir Philip Stott, Lancashire's famous mill architect, and this is at Chadderton Central Library. So I think Stott, I've referenced Stott and Sons, certainly in my cotton mills talk. They were an architectural practice established in 1847 in Clegg Street, specialised in designing cotton mills. So the firm was started by Abraham Henthorne Stott. His brother Joseph joined the firm shortly after, and 3 of Abraham's 9 children also worked at the firm, so a bit of a family concern there. So Stott and Sons designed 191 buildings, 130 of which were either cotton mills or other buildings relating to the cotton industry. They were pretty much, the head honchos, the numero uno in the players when it came to cotton mill design. But the firm declined in the 20th century, kind of along with the cotton mill industry, and the firm was dissolved in 1931. So Sir Philip, not got a photo of him. Oh, there you go, you have to imagine what he looked like. I've not. So Sir Philip was Abraham's 3rd son, and he did join his father's firm, but then he set up his own business in 1883, specialising, funnily enough, in designing cotton mills. All right, Dad, what are you doing? Right, I'm going to go off and do this myself, thank you very much. He designed mills which were built all over Lancashire and all over the world, and in total he was responsible for the building of over 124 mills worldwide. 28 were in Oldham, including Earl Mill. I always do this, I point in the wrong direction. I think I'm pointing up that way.
No.
Over there. No, Earl Mill's that way.
Oh, right.
It's that way. Well anyway, Earl Mill, you know where it is. Up near Park Bridge. Durban Mill, Gorse Mill in Hollingwood, Maple Mill in Hathershaw, that's the one that burned down to great excitement apparently in 2016, and 55 of his mills were built in Lancashire in total. And when I say they were built all over the world, I mean they were built all over the world. His designs sprung up in Bulgaria, Austria, Germany, Denmark, Norway, Mexico, Argentina, Chile, Syria, Egypt and China. That's not bad going.
What a clever race.
Yeah. So all this cotton mill building. Oh yeah, so I've not got a photo of him. I've obviously gone with the important thing. Made him very, very wealthy. And in 1906 he bought this. This is Stanton Court in Gloucestershire. So in 1906 he bought this and 90 acres of land for £26,971. Not bad. And funny enough, it went up for sale last year. So I was like, £14 million. Well, Marcus there, with clearly the deep pockets, I told him, he was like, is that all? That's a lot of money. But yeah, so if you've got 14 mil, that could be yours. Sadly, a little bit more than 26,971. But, in keeping with an awful lot of the Oldham 19th century industrialists, he bought this and it was in need of a lot of TLC, the house and the village. So of course he did the house up, that's where he's going to live. But he devoted himself to improving the village. He restored all the properties, he built a reservoir, he installed lighting on the main street, improved the church, extended the school, built a cricket field and a swimming pool. I love it. So yes, okay, that wasn't in Oldham, but he was an Oldham boy going forth and sharing you know, his money. And he died in 1937 here at the age of 79. Okay, I have to get a wiggle on. Okay, number 31, Joseph Burgess, founder of the Independent Labour Party. This is at 64A Old Road, Failsworth. So, Joseph, born in July 1853, worked in a cotton mill at the age of 6. Get under there, love. You'll be fine. No one needs 8 fingers and 2 thumbs. You're all right. Didn't do Annie Kenny any harm. Oh no, she hadn't been born then. You know what I mean. So he worked in cotton mills until he was 28, and from then on he worked in newspapers. So like I said, he was one of the founders of the Independent Labour Party. Now, I'm not a political person. I assumed that was the origins of the Labour Party, but I was wrong. Very separate entity. So towards the end of the 19th century, there was growing resentment at the poshness of MPs, I suppose to put it that way. It wasn't generally felt, especially in the north, that elected MPs spoke for the working class, of which, you know, many in Oldham. So the Independent Labour Party was founded at a conference in Bradford in 1893 to represent those working class interests, and this gentleman was one of the founders. And they wanted to endorse working class candidates, because, you know, I spoke last month about Winston Churchill being the MP for Oldham. I mean, he was born into privilege. It would probably make Sarah Lees look poor, you know. So I can obviously see where they were coming from. And Keir Hardie, the first leader of the Labour Party, was the Independent Labour Party's first chairman. I'm going to call them the ILP from now. So growth was slow for the ILP. So in 1895, returned no MPs. When the Labour Party was formed in 1906, the ILP became affiliated with those. So they did grow steadily, the ILP, in the early 20th century. However, in World War I, and then again in World War II, they firmly opposed the wars on ethical reasons, and so they lost many of their members who were very, let's all go off and beat up, you know, people in Europe, who were very much in support of the war. So the ILP, they peaked in 1923 when they had 39 elected MPs and 4.9% of the vote, but it steadily fell. By 1935, they only had 3 MPs, and by 1950, they had none. Again, Second World War, their stance opposing it lost a lot of support. So in 1975, the ILP was renamed Independent Labour Publications and became a pressure group within the Labour Party, still going strong today. As for Joseph, bless him, he founded this, but he ran unsuccessfully several times to get elected. 1894, 1895, 1906, 1908, 1910 when he stopped trying. And he resigned in 1915, bless him. He was like, fine, I've tried to get elected, it's not happening, I don't want to be part of you anymore. And he spent the remainder of his career working in newspapers until his death in 1934. Okay, so I've mentioned possibly it's some obscure people. These ones might not need much by way of an introduction. Yeah? Terry Hall, ventriloquist and creator of Lenny the Lion, Middleton Road, Oldham. My mum was a huge fan. Oh, she's always quoting Lenny the Lion. Sorry, Mum, if you're watching this. But yes. Oh, and I love it when she does. It's like, I'm sorry. Love it. So Terry was born in Chadderton in November 1926, clearly displayed a talent as a ventriloquist because he entered a talent contest when he was 15 and he won. I think it probably helped. His parents ran a working men's club, so it was like he had a captive audience. Our son's going to practice. Really? Yes! So he'd obviously have got a lot of chance to practice there. So one of the first ventriloquists to use an animal puppet. That is not scary in the slightest. I mean, that would have freaked me right out. But I don't like ventriloquist dummies anyway. But usually, ventriloquists used a human figure, usually a child. The first ventriloquist to use an animal is credited to Jimmy Nelson in America with Farfar the dog. I mean, look at that. But so, I mean, it looks dead. But it's so popular. He made so much money advertising. That is the stuff of nightmares. That really is. Please, nobody sue me. But that's the stuff of nightmares. But anyway, Terry and Lenny first appeared on TV in 1956 on the Beeb. Lenny the Lion Show ran from 57 to 60. There was Lenny's Den that ran 59 to 61, and Pops and Lenny, a pop programme that ran 62 to 63. And you know, I like to give you potential pub quiz question winners. I've got 2 for you here. The Beatles appeared on Pops and Lenny in 1963, one of their very early TV appearances. It's like, come on, George, let's go on. They've got a lion. I don't know, they clearly weren't from Oldham, the Beatles, but I can't do a Liverpudlian accent. And second, David Bowie's dad worked on the programme and also ran the Lenny the Lion fan club. There we go. Wonder if my mum was a member. Did she know who she was corresponding with? So Terry, good lad, remained a lifelong Oldham Athletics fan. Sadly suffered with Alzheimer's in his later years, and he died in April 2007 at the age of 80. Number 33, the first of 2 outings here. Watersheddings Rugby Club, Oldham's home ground, 1889 to 1997, and it's at the junction of Ripponham Road and Count Hill Road, Watersheddings. So like I said, the first of 2 entries. So Oldham Rugby League Football Club was founded in 1876 at the Prince Albert Hotel, Union Street West. The original playing field was at Sugar Meadow, Gartside Street, next to Glodick Mill, I know how to pronounce that now. And the original headquarters was in the Black Swan Hotel, Bottom Up Moor, in Monts. Yeah? That's the woman who clearly knew it very well. Yes?
I've been in the pub, but yeah, not a long time ago.
Yeah. So in 1889, the club's ground moved to Watersheddings, allegedly the highest rugby league ground in the UK at 770 feet above sea level. This closed in 1997 when they moved to Boundary Park, which is known, incidentally, as being the coldest ground in the UK. There we go. So Oldham's cricket ground was originally situated next to Watersheddings. That was, I love this, it's so Oldham. Cricket, nah, let's get rid and put in a greyhound racing stadium. So that's exactly what they did. And so when the ground was closed in 1997, it was redeveloped into housing, but it pleased me to discover the last game played at Watersheddings was against Swinton, who Oldham beat 2016. There we go, we'll have a bit of that. Number 34, Water Street, part of an ancient route. This is at Manchester Chambers on George Street. So in my talk last year, Old Things of Oldham, I talked about Church Lane, understood to be one of the ancient routes in and out of Oldham. Look at that arrow. God, I love it. So this shows ancient routes through Oldham. So here, this was created by Oldham Council, but this one, if you follow that line, that is an ancient route going through Oldham. And so Church Lane up here, that's the one that I spoke about last year. But the ancient route went to Osterlands and then on to Hay in Yorkshire. And I found a source online that says archaeologists recognise Church Lane to predate the Romans and is a road that is probably as old as human life in this corner of England. But the blue plaque doesn't recognise Church Lane, but Water Street, which is just here, or was, should I say. So Water Street and Church Lane were connected, but Church Lane does still remain in a reduced capacity, but Water Street is no longer. This is an undated image of Water Street I found online. I don't know when it was built over, but doesn't exist. The earliest recorded mention of Water Street dates back to 1746, but it is accepted that it did form part of that ancient route. And I find it fascinating to imagine, you know, Iron Age, Bronze Age, Stone Age, feats. You know, because if you had a pathway, if you had a route, why deviate from it? You know, it could have been there, being walked on for tens of thousands of years or longer. Love it. Number 35, Eric Sykes. I think we probably all know this gentleman. Comedian, 36 St Hilda's Drive in Oldham. There we go, Eric Sykes. Probably doesn't need too much of an introduction. Considered to be one of the all-time comedy greats, career lasting over 50 years. So I could have written a lot about him, but I condensed it thinking I should have condensed it more. Couple of interesting facts, however. The first one being, Eric died in 2012. His blue plaque was erected in Oldham at his place of birth in 2013. Now, I think you were all here last month, or most of you. There we go. The very rule that English Heritage says you have to have been dead for at least 20 years. So, I mean, not that I begrudge Eric getting one, but it's just, so part of me thinking, did Oldham Council put it up on the QT? Does English Heritage actually know? So if you're watching this English Heritage, I mean, obviously you are. But yeah, I don't know why that went up a year after he died. Like I said, I do not begrudge it, but I'm a strict follower of rules. And it's been broken. But he was born in May 1923 and his mother died 3 weeks later. Very sad, yeah. Dad remarried, he was brought up, educated in Oldham, served in the RAF during World War II, and that's where he started to develop his entertainment career, putting on, shows and comedy routines for his fellow troops. After leaving the RAF, he moved to London and began writing radio material for other, absolute comedy greats, Tony Hancock, Spike Milligan, Frankie Howard, Peter Sellers. He started making TV appearances in the 1950s, and in 1960 got his own programme, Sykes and A ... I kept finding that online. I was like, Sykes and a what? I thought it was just shortened for something, but apparently it was just called Sykes and A ... Ran until 19...
It changed every week with different subjects.
Ah, it's like Sykes and
Sykes on
A...
a bicycle, Sykes in a ladder.
There you go. Thank you. This is why I do these talks. For exactly that. Now I know. Rarely off TV in the following decade. He was in films. He was in one of the Harry Potter films, the third one, Goblets of Fire. He was also very involved in the Teletubbies. Yes. So he was a narrator, and on the theme tune where it goes, Teletubbies say oh, that was his voice. So this was a #1 chart hit in the 90s. And so he's got a #1 song under his belt as well. But yeah, Teletubbies. And this is another interesting fact. So Eric became profoundly deaf in his 30s. And these glasses are not glasses. They don't contain lens. They are bone conduction hearing aids. The frames housed the hearing aids, so it allowed him to hear without wearing traditional hearing aids. Yeah? I don't know, but I mean, how amazing is that? How amazing is that? So, despite living in London, he also remained a huge supporter of Oldham Athletic, served as an honorary director and board member. He was also an honorary member of Crompton and Royton Golf Club. There we go. Okay, number 36, the Toll House, Chew Valley Road in Greenfield. So this, excuse me, was erected in 2011 and is displayed on what is now a privately owned home. But this is the Toll House, built around 1827, and it housed a toll collector who charged travellers on the Chew Valley Road for the pleasure of doing so. So Chew Valley Road was then a turnpike road connecting West Harptree and Chew Magna. That sounds like something out of a Harry Potter film, Chew Magna. So a turnpike road basically was privately owned, and you paid a fee when using it to help with the cost of maintaining it. In the 1830s, there were about 1,000 turnpike roads in England, but their number declined swiftly with the introduction of trains and the rail network, which, was a quicker, more efficient means of transporting goods. And from the 1870s, roads like Chew Valley Road stopped being privately owned. They came under the care of the local authorities, who then became responsible for their upkeep. And so this stopped being a turnpike road around 1885. There are still a few roads operating as turnpikes. The most famous one, I guess, being the M6 toll road that opened 20 years ago, something like that. charges £8.90 currently for a car. That's a lot of dosh. In contrast, there is a toll booth at Bath Eastern Bridge near Bath, that charges 80p per car. And you've got Whitchurch Bridge in Berkshire, which charges 60p, reduced to 45p if you have a season ticket. Love it, absolutely love it. But hang about because we'll be back on Chew Valley Road very shortly. Number 37, our second outing at Watersheddings Rugby Grounds. So just imagine you've got the photo of Watersheddings in front of you, but I didn't put it on twice. So this time it's celebrating the first home game played under the rule of Rugby League 1895, but for the eagle-eared, you'll know Watersheddings didn't become the home ground until 1889, but because the old ground is probably concreted under, over and whatever, the plaque is at Watersheddings with the other plaque, if that makes sense. So last month I spoke about Joseph Platt, who was number 15 on our list. He was the first secretary of Northern Rugby Union, which was created in 1895. This was basically, they wanted players to be paid 6 shillings, that's all, a week to make up for lost income from when they were playing rugby. But the Rugby Football Union said, no, not happening. So there was a meeting at a hotel in Huddersfield in August 1895, and one of the organisers being Oldham lad Joseph Platt. And so as a result, 22 Northern Rugby clubs broke away and became the Northern Rugby Football Union, which became later the Rugby League. And so the first home game for Oldham under this was September 21st, 1895, against Tyldesley. Sadly, they lost, 3-11. Boo. Okay, just a few left. Number 38, Whit Friday Band Contest, King William IV Public House, Chew Valley Road, Greenfield. So we're back on Chew Valley Road. Have you ever been to one of these?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, yeah. I'm not. Sounds awesome. So it's a celebration of the annual Whit Friday Brass Band Contest. So the blue plaque.
First date there.
Yeah, we did, yeah.
Our very first date went to Whitwalk.
I love that.
On Chew Valley Road.
Was it a bit noisy?
It was lovely.
So yeah, so the blue plaque was erected in 2022 to mark the 100th anniversary of the first contest. As you can see, the overall winners were Wingate Temperance Band. I love it. It's commemorated at a pub, and the first winners didn't drink. Brilliant. I love it. Or allegedly didn't drink. So, Whit Friday, I recognise the term, didn't have a clue what it was. It's the first Friday after Whitsun, which is also called Pentecost, a Christian holy day that celebrates the coming of the Holy Spirit to Jesus' disciples 50 days after Easter.
Next Friday.
It is. Yes,
Not
it
this
is.
Friday, next Friday.
No, next Friday. So, as I was literally about to say, every time this month, every time. This year, Whit Friday and the band contest takes place on Friday, June the 13th. There we go.
That's what I
Friday
said,
the
next
13th.
Friday.
What could possibly go wrong? But it's great. So there's 11 villages local to Greenfield, and they all run independent brass band contests. And I was reading about like coaches basically go mad driving round getting their bands to all the villages that they're entered into. But if you compete at least 6 of the village contests, you can win an area prize too. And last year, 117 brass bands entered. And the overall winners were the Brighouse and Rastrick brass bands.
Been and seen the advert today.
There we go.
Been up that way today.
Love it. Yeah, no, we're definitely going to have to get ourselves over to it. I think it sounds amazing. Okay, so penultimate one on our list. Marjorie Lees, daughter of Dame Sarah, suffragist, philanthropist, social welfare activist, and again at Weymouth Park. So she was born in August 1878 and basically followed in her mum Dame Sarah's footsteps. Very active in local politics. Oh yeah, there's a photo of her. Very active in the women's suffrage movement. So in 1919, Sarah, her mum, stepped down from Oldham Council, and Marjorie was elected to the same seat, serving until 1934. a philanthropist. In 1936, following the death of her mother, she donated the family home of Werneth Park to the people of Oldham, and she had been mayoress to her mum when Sarah was mayor in 1910. Marjorie was elected president of Oldham Women's Suffrage Society, forming its formation in 1910, and was founded to work towards achieving equal voting rights for women by peaceful and legal means, petitions to the government, marches, and so forth. And like her mother, incredibly passionate about helping the people of Oldham. So she donated Werneth Park, and it serves now as an adult education centre called Werneth Park Lifelong Learning Centre. She was a passionate campaigner to improve the health of working class mothers and babies, reflected in the name of the Marjorie Lees Dental Centre, named after her, in recognition of what she did. And along with her mother, she was one of the founders of the beautiful Oldham Society in 1902, which encouraged the planting of flowers and trees and inspired community projects, sadly no longer in existence, but there is Northern Roots. I think some of us will have heard of them or seen them. And they very much, in fact, if you go onto their website, there is a little bit about beautiful Oldham, you know, that very much part of their ethos today. So Marjorie never married, and she died in May 1970 at the age of 91. And the last one, number 40, is actually a duplicate of the first blue plaque I discussed last month. So it commemorates the two men from Chadderton. So sorry, it's the Chadderton contingent at Peterloo at the Crossley Centre in Denton Lane in Chadderton. So the two Chadderton gentlemen who died at the Peterloo Massacre in 1819, so I did chapter and verse about that. We're not going to go through that, other than to acknowledge both plaques commemorate John Ashton, age 42 and a weaver, and Thomas Buckley, age 62 and a gardener. They set off with the Chadderton contingent from the Dog Inn in Chadderton, and they were both killed when the cavalry was ordered to charge into the ground to disperse the protest. So this plaque, number 40, is at the Crossley Centre and was erected in 2023 in Chadderton. The one I discussed last month is at the Civic Centre in Oldham. I don't know when that was erected, but, you know, fair enough, Chadderton wanted their own plaque, so they went and did it. So that is number 40. Oh, that is all the blue plaques done. If you've got 2 minutes, I did do the June minutes from Bardsley. I've forgotten words now. Bardsley Institute Committee meetings. There's hardly any. June was clearly a month where they're all off on their jollies. Okay, so I will go through it. 2 minutes. Yeah, brilliant. So, June 7th, 1929, there was a strong statement. There were several discussions about things in general. I was like, read on, Kelly. No gossip. The things referred to were chairs, which needed repairing, and that all members should pull together and make the gala a great success, which I think sounds kind of threatening. But yeah, several discussions about things in general. Chairs need repairing, boo. June the 5th, 1931, it was moved and seconded that all curtains in the Institute were to be taken down and distributed amongst members to be ironed. Love it. But it did make me think, by a great margin, the names mentioned in the minutes belong to men. I rarely see ladies' names being mentioned. So I read it and thought, yeah, to be distributed amongst the members' wives, no doubt, to be ironed. But they don't get in the minutes, do they? No. June 4th, 1937. So it's been 6 years since the last June meeting. I told you it was a quiet month. So this is a reference to the annual outing. So last month we discovered a destination and who was going to provide the transportation. This month we were told that it was going to leave at 1:30 p.m. prompt on July 19th. No, turning up late. And then the last one was on June the 3rd, 1938. So this intrigued me. It was agreed that committee members would have tea at Woodlands on July 16th at a cost of 2 shillings each. Don't know what Woodlands is. I've tried looking, but I found a doctor's surgery, a primary school. I don't know if it was like a hotel or anyone heard of Woodlands? No. But that's it. So the only other thing in June 1938.
I think it was Lisson near Werner's Park.
Oh,
I think women used to go out and have babies there.
Woodlands.
Yeah.
And that's where they're going to go and have tea. Well, that's giving me something to go and research, because I didn't look that further afield. I was just looking locally. Thank you. But yeah, the only other thing on the June minutes for 1938 was that a box was approved to be repaired. It just says, the box is approved to be repaired. I have no idea what box is being referred to. It's clearly important because it needs repairing. But I'm just, seriously, did you not think that in the best part of 100 years later, I would be looking at this going, what box? So I'm hoping in July, there'll be reference to the box that's being repaired, because that's actually going to annoy me. But that's it. June, a very quiet month, but things are looking promising for July. So, which leads me, there might not be a July talk. Oh, I love that. Oh, stop it. Maybe there will be then. Oh, I don't know. I don't know if I'm going to have time to, and I've never ever yet, I never will, thrown one together. You know, I don't do them half-heartedly. Maybe there will. Watch this space. But if there isn't one in July, I promise, there will be one. I mean, you're always on holiday. But there will definitely be one in August if there's not one in July. But maybe there will be one in both now. I'll do 2 in July then. But I'll post it and I'll let you know if there's not going to be one. All right. Thank you so much for coming. I've loved it. Thank you.